Buying a home is expensive. Outside of your down payment, there are a lot of additional costs and fees. These are the dreaded closing costs. And I've heard different breakdowns using percentages, using a flat fee. In today's video, I want to talk about what are these costs, and we'll go through and provide some definition based on not only how much you can expect to pay in some of these cases, but what you're paying for, because I think that it's important. So remember, hit the like and subscribe button so you can hear more information regarding these types of videos and other videos coming up. But let's dive right in. So to start, lender's fees. When you're buying a home, you're going to pay fees associated with obtaining a loan. So when you're taking out financing, there are certain costs that lenders will charge. The majority of these fees will be listed under what's called an origination charge. An origination charge are going to be the fees that the lender charges in relation to the cost of the loan. And these will be grouped together under one set fee. That does include things like processing the loan, underwriting, and other things that go into the basic structure of providing the financing. So when you're looking at your closing costs, expect to see an origination charge, which will include those lender's fees. Now, also in line with this, you'll see a line item that's called discount points. And it's important to differentiate between the origination charges and the discount points, because sometimes these are, well, let's just say that they're presented in a way that looks more favorable for the lender when they're not actually giving you the benefit. So a discount fee or a discount point is a fee that you pay in order to get a discount, right? To get a lower interest rate, as opposed to origination charge. Origination charges are generally going to be costs that go to the lender. And in some cases, a lender may charge origination charges to present a lower interest rate, but at the same time, you need to be careful and make sure that you have a good understanding on the relation of what your interest rate is into these two costs. Now, again, a discount fee or a discount point is only in relation to getting a lower interest rate. So if you're talking to a lender and they're presenting those costs and you see these fees, make sure you have an idea of what the balance is between the two of those. Also expected will be an appraisal fee. Now, in some cases, you may not need an appraisal on a property. There's actually been a lot of positive improvements in our industry, and there's an algorithm that's been run by Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac that will determine, based off of the available data for the property as well as your personal makeup for purchasing the property, this will determine if an appraisal is necessary or not. And appraisal charges can range anywhere from $485, that's what we charge in most cases, up to as high as $600-700. So when you're going through and looking, expect to see a cost for the appraisal. Now keep in mind, an appraisal on a home is for the lender. When you're buying a home, an appraisal is to tell the lender that the home is sufficient collateral. So we're going through and making sure that the property is worth what we are lending. As the lender, we want to make sure that should something happen and we have to foreclose on that property, we want to make sure that the value is there. So you pay that appraisal to tell the lender that that property is sufficient collateral. Now, segue into, and not to be confused with, a home inspection. So an appraisal is ordered by the lender. A home inspection is something that the buyer will hire the inspector themselves. So you'll pick your home inspector, and the difference is that an inspection is to determine the quality of the property or to see if there's any type of issues, any type of repairs that you can expect in the immediate future or moving forward with the cost of home ownership, right? The life of the roof and things of that nature. So the appraisal is to determine the value, and the inspection is to determine the quality of the property, if you will. That's a basic idea between the two of those. Also, right now, you'll expect to see credit reporting fees. The cost of lending has gone up significantly, and a lot of these costs then are going to be passed on. One of these third-party charges are for your credit report. I think most people at least, are aware that you have to have your credit checked when you're applying for a loan. So expect to have that cost passed on, and that can range anywhere from $40, $60, up to $100, depending on the bank or the lender that you're talking to. So when you're looking at that, you'll see that broken down into different breakdowns. Talk to the lender and see what goes into the credit reporting fee. So for a recap, with your loan, you can have your origination charge, you're going to have discount points if applicable, you're also going to then have an appraisal charge, and you'll also have credit reporting fees. Now, sidebar here as well, if you're purchasing a certain type of property, so in this example, a condo, then expect to see additional charges. When you're buying a condo, you're buying part of a business, basically. You're buying one piece of that property, and you're going into business with the other people who own the other units in that building, and that business is managed by an HOA or an association. Well, lenders need to make sure that that business is being run properly. We want to make sure that there's nothing going on that would keep you from obtaining your loan. And there's a lot of things that can come up. Look for future videos on that. But when you're going through and you're purchasing that condo or a townhome, if there's an association, the lender's going to reach out and ask the association for documentation, send a questionnaire and ask for documents to determine the health of the association. Well, the HOA may charge for that. And in some cases, that can range from anywhere from $50 up to $200. So a lot of lenders will pass this cost on to the client. So this is another fee that you can expect to see when you're buying a home, at least associated with the financing. Now, outside of those charges, these are the lending costs. There's a lot of other fees that can come into play as well. One of the biggest costs that you'll run into when you buy a home will be your title charges. Now, in most cases, the seller is going to be responsible for providing a clear and transferable title. So they'll order that title from their agency of choice. If you're in a state where you use attorneys, then the seller's attorney will order that title from whatever agency they have a relationship with. And those costs will be passed on to both the seller of the property as well as the buyer. A significant portion will be passed on to the buyer. And this can range anywhere from as much as $3,600 to the upward of $5,000, $6,000, depending on the state that you're in. Some states can be quite expensive, Florida being one of the more expensive. Texas can also be very expensive, and New York as well. One of the differences between Florida and New York, though, in this example, is that you as a buyer will actually have the right to go through and order that title through an attorney yourself. But title fees are going to be one of the most expensive parts of buying a home. This is for, and it is important, right? So this is for the title insurance. So title insurance is to make sure that there are no issues with your ownership to the property, nothing that can come up showing that there's a lien that is in place over your own ownership interest or the mortgage for that matter. So title insurance will make sure that you have a clear and transferable title. You also hear lender's title insurance. Lender's title insurance is to make sure that there are no liens that will take place, previous liens that were not released. They're still on the title showing that there's money owed against the property, which then, because that lien was recorded at an earlier date, would then take precedence and come in place before your new mortgage. Well, lenders don't want that. So although lender's title insurance is a cost coming from that seller's title company in most cases, it's still a cost that's necessary to determine that, well, it's something your lender requires to make sure that they stay in that first lien position, provided you're taking out a primary mortgage. Another fee that will be collected by the title company that can be common in certain cities and counties and municipalities will be transfer taxes. So when you're buying a home, you may pay a percentage of your purchase price, a dollar amount multiplied by that percentage it's basically like a sales tax, if you will. So for example, in Chicago, the transfer taxes are currently $7.50 for every $1,000 of a purchase price. So if, using easy math, if someone was to buy a $100,000 property, well, then we would multiply 100, because that's how many thousand there are, by $7.50, and that would be $750 that is payable to at the closing, and the title company will collect on the behalf of the city or the county, and they'll disperse those funds. So when you're going through and looking at closing costs, you may expect to see these types of taxes. They're not in the majority of the cities and states, so just keep your eyes based on where you're buying, and that may be something that you determine. I've had clients who are looking in neighboring townships, and they're going to look, or in cities, and they're going to look in Chicago versus somewhere right next to Chicago, and they may come to find that it's actually cheaper to buy outside of the city because there's this additional tax that doesn't apply. Another closing cost that you want to look at, attorney's fees. So if you're in a state that uses an attorney, then you're going to want to hire an attorney. It's not required, right? But it's highly suggested. If the seller's using an attorney, you should probably lawyer up and get an attorney. And those fees usually range right now in the current environment from anywhere from $700 and up. It could be as much as $1,000. If you have simultaneous transactions, maybe you're selling and buying at the same time, then your attorney may be able to work out something for representing both sides of that. So just make sure you talk to your attorney. You select your attorney. So I think it's important to note, lender's fees that we talked about before, those are determined by your lender. Title charges in most cases are going to be determined by the seller's title company. Attorney's fee, home inspector, which we discussed earlier, those fees are generally going to be determined by who you choose to work with. So a little bit more control over the costs on that. But I wouldn't necessarily go bargain hunting. Look for someone with a great reputation that you trust. When it comes to an attorney, they're representing you in these legal matters, so you want to make sure that they have your best interest in mind. So don't shy away from someone just because the cost might be a little bit higher. So again, that's going to be attorney's fees, home inspection fees, title fees, appraisal fees, credit reporting fees, condo fees, lender's fees, discounts to your interest rate. It really can add up. There's a lot of costs that go into buying a home. So I thought it was a good idea to break this down so that this will give you a better idea of some of the definitions. This way, when you're talking to lenders and you're looking to buy a home, you'll have a better understanding of what you're going to see. Check out the next video to see these closing costs displayed in the actual closing disclosure, which is a document that you receive when you're applying for a loan. We'll talk through and show you where to see and what to look for and what to look out for. Thanks for watching.